welcome to the SilmFilm Project Script Discussion Season 1, Episode 8, and maybe 9. We'll see. Okay. So, first things first. We've been talking for a while, that at some point we're going to come to a point where maybe we're not going to need the frame or something like that. And
we're at that point.
And yeah, I was going to say, because like we've been doing episodes where they haven't talked about the frame at all, and we keep coming up with things that we need the frame for. And I think that this is the episode. Why am I crazy? This is the episode that this is going to happen, because we have a lot of things to do in this episode. Yeah. And I think that we're just not going to have enough time to be in the frame. So that being said, that eliminates that whole section of discussion. Fantastic. Yeah,
I mean, we can still have a frame in the sense that Estelle can go to class, Elron can say, "Here's the class," and then we end with them back in Rivendell and like a shot of a tapestry with the 2 trees on it or something. Right.
If we even needed to do that.
Yeah, I feel like probably that much just to keep it. If this is the only episode that had no frame at all, that would be a little weird. But it could be that minimal of 1 minute at the beginning and 30 seconds at the end. Done.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Done and done. All right. So, few things that we have going on here. All right. We have the Tokus and Orome buddy cop hunting thing.
Yes, we do.
We have the visit to Autumno, which I'm super excited about. When that idea first came up, I was a little hesitant, but as I was listening to that episode as it was going, Professor Olsen really sold me on it, and I think it's fantastic. I really do. There was some back and forth on it on the forums, but like, I can't even imagine our depiction of this story without it at this point. Like, it's just awesome.
Yes, it serves a very worthwhile purpose. Yes. So if we're going to have random invented things that are for no purpose and be okay with it, I think this one doesn't even have to prove itself.
Right, yeah.
Like the whole thing with Nessa and Goliyan. Like, it's not that was completely pointless, but we could totally have told the story without that, whereas this is more centering on the crucial interaction between Medway and Melkor, and the more of that, the better for telling our story.
Yes, I agree. Also, we have the trees themselves, which I'm really curious, because I don't think it was ever really pinned down, is how we get there with the trees.
Yeah, it's more like, and then the trees happen. Okay, we're good.
Because I think we have to set that up. That has to be set up at the beginning. That's kind of what we need to open up in Valinor. We show that they've pretty much settled at this point. Their different realms are established. Maybe that little bit of the frame that we have is Elron talking about, is maybe a little bit of voiceover from Elron as we visit the different places, because we already know who these people are. It's not like it's some kind of, we're just throwing random people that we've never seen before on the screen now with a voiceover.
Right.
It's more akin to the not the prologue of Fellowship of the Ring, but the mini prologue where Bilbo does the concerning Hobbits thing. And we see the little vignettes of different hobbits doing hobbity things.
Yeah. As long as it doesn't sound like, and these are the forests of Orome, and these are the plains of Ivana. Yeah. Like, as long as we don't do that, I'm okay. Yeah. And I'm not sure what we would have Elron saying. So
not I'm that. Like, yeah, no, I can see it in your face.
Right. So I'm like, okay, well, if they start with not that, then it's like, well, what's left? And we already know who Orome and Yvonne and all these people are. So seeing their realms with them in it should be self-explanatory to us. Yeah. So it can be more of the Valar have established their new home, and they reach, but it's some kind of.
He doesn't need to be listing them. He just needs to give some kind of audio to kind of shuttle us in.
Right, and I'm fine with that, as long as that's what we're saying. I just didn't want Elron to read the Valar.
No. We're good with that. Okay. So we're kind of establishing everybody, but it's still dark, and we really miss the light now that we don't have it. We had it and we don't have it anymore.
Yeah. So the idea was to start with Ivana being the most in mourning for the light being gone, which I think is a very reasonable thing. So would she seek out Nana then to talk to her about her concern, or would Nana seek her out?
I think that Nana would seek her out, because, and I said this during the podcast broadcast, where I feel like this is the first time that the other Valor really kind of get what Nana's there for. It's the first time they really understand. Oh, that's so when this stuff happens. Okay. Yeah. It was funny, around the same time that this discussion came up was when my wife and I went to see Inside Out, the Pixar, and I immediately was like, sadness. She's Nana. Oh my goodness, it's the same. I'm sitting there watching this movie, and it's the same idea, and yeah, I think that incorporating that kind of mechanic into her relationship with the other Valar might be good to do here.
Yes, and I agree that the other Valar probably didn't get her up until the destruction of the lands. So having her be the one to seek someone out makes more sense. Yeah. Even though I'm sure that they kind of got clued in a little bit at the beginning of the last episode when everyone's kind of in the wreckage of Almiron going, I'm sure she was older than that. But to show her taking an active role now would be good. Yeah. I see her as being someone who does much better one-on-one with people than in group discussions.
Yeah, I think Professor Olsen said the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I see her wanting to go to the side and have the conversation.
Right.
Somewhere kind of things. So where should they be? Is this going to be in the fields of Ivana, or is this going to be like in Goliyan, or?
Well, what if? Because everybody else has kind of kept themselves active, and it's kind of taken their mind off of the whole destruction of the lamps and the destruction of Almarin thing. But Yvonne's not just mourning the destruction of Almarin and the destruction of the lamps. She's mourning the loss of the light. She's mourning the loss of the ability to have the kind of plant life that she was growing.
Right. This just kind of killed all her projects.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So where would she be?
I know. I didn't totally dodge your question. My dog is chasing a fly, which Ivana I don't think is doing. Let's see. Well, okay. In order for us to before we establish where they are, we need to kind of get at what happens during that conversation. Because if we figure out what's happening during that conversation, it's going to help us it's going to dictate where they need to be.
Okay. All right. So Nana approaches her and it says something along the lines of, I know this has been hardest for you, or something like that, where it calls her out of being like, I'm here for a reason. And Ivana would say, well, we all lost the lamps, but I don't know where to go from here, because I feel like Ivana should be a little bit at a loss of just feeling very up in the air and flustered, which should be typical for her. She's much more grounded usually. So just very out of sorts. And then Nana kind of would help talk her through that. To a place
I also would like to see Ivana kind of like Nana tries to draw out that sorrow from her, and maybe Ivana kind of downplays it at first. She kind of resists that impulse at first, because it feels kind of. It's just kind of, it feels kind of whiny to her at first, like, you know.
That's why I said she'd want to be like, well, yeah, everyone, you know, misses the lamps, yeah, and like, it's not just me. This is we're all in this together. Yeah. Don't worry about me. And then it's like, yeah,
everybody, everybody's missing lamps. Exactly. I repeated it because your audio went berserk for a second. And so, okay. So let me ask you this. Do we want to have Nessa suggest that they do them together here? Or do we want the idea to be entirely Ivana's in origination and have her come back to Nana in regards to that?
I do like the idea of it being kind of an ongoing conversation between them.
To do with that.
So I do like that.
So we can come back to that, you know, because we have our A plot, B plot, C plot. Yes.
C plot being the buddy comedy, I hope. Yeah. Just making sure. Checking.
And I mean, I feel like honestly, like the whole Manway Melkor thing, that's going to take front and center. I feel, this is, that's going to be our A plot, right? Exactly.
Yeah. And then
giving the C plot to Yvonne and Nana. But that's the culmination, though. That's the culmination of the episode.
Right. So if we're introducing it here, we shouldn't introduce any solution to the problem in the first conversation. It should be about establishing that it's okay to mourn the past, but still have hope for the future, or something along those lines. You know, some kind of generally feel good. Like, I'm glad we talked about this kind of thing, but we didn't actually fix anything.
I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head for Nana's line here is going to be, you know, it's all right to mourn for, you know, just because you mourn for what's lost doesn't mean that you're rejecting what can happen in the future or what is to come. You know what I mean? Because I think that maybe Ivana doesn't. Maybe that's the way Ivana sees it. That if she's she's afraid that if she's too wrapped up in the sadness, in the sorrow over the loss of the trees, which is clearly impacting her and kind of paralyzing her almost, she won't be able to move forward. But the reality of the situation is that if she doesn't express that sorrow, if she doesn't let that sorrow exist in her, then that's actually what's preventing her from moving forward.
I wonder if this might be too much because this episode already has way too many things going on. But do we want to see Ivana by herself being kind of down and out at the beginning and having other people notice that before we get to the point where
what I would say is not necessarily having other people notice it, but I would like to see her by herself, you know, just kind of you know, maybe she's working in her gardens or whatever it is that she's doing, but like her heart's not really in it, and it's not really right.
She's very down-spirited, droopy. Yeah, because I don't really picture her as somebody who would suffer from depression, ever. She just doesn't seem that type of personality. Melancholy is not her typical state. So to have something like this happen to her and hit her, I imagine she wouldn't really know how to work through it or deal with it on her own. So it would be a new thing for her. Because someone who is fairly, I mean, I'm not clinical depression kind of stuff, that's obviously a whole separate issue. But someone who is fairly melancholy by nature is going to get used to how to keep on keeping on despite being a little bit overwhelmed by things sometimes. So I think that someone who's generally cheerful and not like that gets hit by that and is a little bit more.
It's a new
I don't know how to
for her. Yeah,
get out of this. Is right. That's what I'm trying to express. Is I feel like this would all be kind of new for Ivana. But yeah, I'm not saying that she needs a therapist at this point.
Okay. Do we want to do we want to cut it off? Do we want to cut that scene off with Ivana's, like maybe Nana delivers her, her armor-piercing line, and Ivana maybe reacts to it, but it doesn't really sink in just yet? Or do we want to have that conversation resolved before we move on to the them? Do we want to see a moment of hugging before we move on to the next thing?
I would like to see. I'm glad we had this talk. Kind of.
We're back. All right. Where were we? You were saying something very profound, and then you disappeared into.
Oh, I was saying that I would like for Ivana and Nana to have a moment at the end there.
Okay.
I'm glad we've had this conversation, mostly because the two of them haven't interacted before this. Yeah. So I want to see that they came to an understanding of some sort. Even though they have no plan moving forward, it's still we're in this together. They at least are at that point of the.
Okay.
I think.
I like it. Okay. So they have their moment.
All right. Good. First conversation done.
Okay. Cool.
And we were in Ivana's home turf.
Yes.
On some level.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So then I feel like we want to go to Manwë next.
Mm-hmm.
With the decision being made to go to Autumno.
Right. So this will be the first time we've seen whatever he's done with Patel, Kettle, however you pronounce the mountain's name.
Patel sounds great to me. Anyway. For some reason, even though I know that Ungoliant is not pronounced Ungoliant, I still keep saying it that way for bizarre reasons. I come across it in the recording all the time. Like in my head, I'm saying it right, and then as I'm watching the recordings over and over and over again to get them edited properly.
Oh yes, I've noticed you say that. But the deal with Silmarillion pronunciation is that because there's no film or anything, most people have different ideas of how you should say all the words.
Yes.
So we're going to run into that. And there's a few that I care about, and most of the rest I don't. So far, everyone has said Feanor, so I'm happy.
Yes.
Yeah. If anyone tries Feanor on me, we're going to be in trouble, but that's okay. See, no one's done that mistake yet.
Well, that one, I know how it's supposed to be pronounced, and yet, for some bizarre reason, I just can't seem to say it correctly.
Yeah, I don't know how to say the name of the mountain, so Tenekettle.
All right. So anyway, so I feel like this is a conversation between Varda and Manwë. Because like I was saying when we were at this point in the podcast, I feel like Manwë's attitude is that I have to try. I have to give this a shot.
Yes.
All we are saying is give peace a chance.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, that is Manwë's point of view because he knows the chances of this working are very slim. Right. And that's Varda's whole argument is going to be this isn't going to work. This is beyond that point. And it's his idea. Well, that's probably true.
Yeah.
But we'll know more after I try.
Right.
We can't just give up.
Yeah, I mean, he should be totally aware of the fact that this is not he's got a slightly more than non-zero chance of this working, but not by much.
Right. In my mind, his mental state is like when Gandalf went to confront Saruman at Orthanc.
Yeah.
After the destruction of everything.
Yeah.
He pretty much knew that wasn't gonna work. that Saruman wasn't going to say, "Oh, you're right. I should come down, hand over the keys to the tower, and go help you guys." Like that wasn't going to be Saruman's decision, but Gandalf felt he had to try.
Yeah, and I feel like the idea of bringing Elron and Kurumo on this trip is going to be like it's just fantastic. I love it. So, and I mean, we kind of know how this is going to go down, but we might as well just go over it. So,
well,